Hi, my tubies, my Teletubbies. Today is one of the best days of my life. I had to redo this video part 1. I don't know, somehow something happened. Anyway, this is talking about Jehovah's Witnesses. This is the Vice documentary. There is no better videos out there than this one. I don't even think I have to make any more videos pertaining to Jehovah's Witnesses ever again after you witness this. Anyway, here we go, guys. I have to redo it, like I said, and enjoy. And I hope, because I prayed to Jehovah, as I'm sure so many of you have, for Jehovah to expose this organization for what it really and truly is. And like we've all been told, leave things in Jehovah's hands. Jehovah have got this. Well, Jehovah handed it over to his son. His son is very upset with how Jehovah's Witnesses have brought so much reproach and so much dirt and filth onto his father's name. So without further ado, I want you to enjoy this video, and I hope that it helps to wake up even more people.
I was baptized into the Jehovah's Witness religion when I was 15 years old. And I never questioned it. There were adults in the congregation that knew about the abuse. I went to those elders. I was putting my life on the line because if my mom found out that I told anyone about the abuse, she would have killed me. And those brothers said, go home and obey your mother.
Think about the apostate-driven lies that Jehovah's organization is permissive toward pedophiles. I mean, that is ridiculous, isn't it?
I knew inside how wrong it felt. I knew how sick I felt. How could you not say something?
You're in a false religion. You're in a cult.
I feel like the religion preys on people at their most vulnerable.
This organization is made to put people in a box, make them fearful for their lives.
Maybe God is real, but it's not this.
So much hidden documentation of child abuse that Watchtower does not want the public to know about.
I knew that this was not going to get out unless someone did something about it.
The problem of sexual abuse in the Jehovah's Witness organization is much, much more significant than in the Catholic Church.
Once you believe in something this strongly, it could be anything. You'll do it.
I can't leave it alone. I know what this organization is responsible for doing.
We're attempting to leave, but we're kind of encircled at the moment.
We should do the right thing. But they don't do the right thing. I was a happy witness for 43 years. Ever since I was a child, I've always been a proponent for justice.
And just for the record, I gave this organization 53 years of my life. So I can imagine how she must feel having given up 43 years of her life, because I know that I am very, very disgusted.
So I became a witness because I thought this was just, that the world would get better. It was the atomic bomb age. There was the concentration camps. I took those scriptures literally about a paradise earth that God would bring about, because I wanted all people to be treated justly.
Surely all of us are thrilled at the prospect of surviving the end of this wicked world. and living on into God's righteous new order. What a grand future awaits us.
Jehovah's Witnesses think that the world is ending. And so since everything in this world is going to be basically burned up at Armageddon, the most important thing to do right now is to preach so that you can teach it to others and save yourself and save other people.
The thing that attracted me to the Watchtower Society was that they taught that Armageddon was so close that those who were living now would never have to die, but that they could live forever.
The basic beliefs of Jehovah's Witnesses that this world one day will come to an end and God will bring in a paradise earth.
Jehovah's Witnesses came along with a positive message, I thought, from the Bible, and that is what I wanted, to please God.
Jehovah's Witnesses feel that they have the truth.
I enjoyed being different to a certain degree. I liked not being one of the masses who weren't enlightened. There was a certain allure to that, feeling like I had the truth.
I felt that I had won the lottery. I was born into the only true religion.
The Jehovah's Witness religion itself was based upon the original work of Charles Russell back in the 1800s.
From before the blessings of Messiah's kingdom, perfect, so long we have prayed, thy kingdom come.
Charles Taze Russell was a prolific writer and a very good businessman. He was very much into the publishing and selling of his books.
Charles Taze Russell had no intention of starting a new religion. The Watchtower is basically the name of the journal.
He started the Watchtower magazine in 1879, so I don't know that you would call it a religion from its outset.
Russell established a corporation, the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society.
They saw the need to purchase their own printing equipment and move to a place that was close to the shipping lanes in the East River. So Charles Russell moved the organization to Brooklyn, New York. The organization was expanding so rapidly, and it's interesting to look back and see all of those videos of the printing presses going back in the 1950s, 60s, and 70s. The Jehovah's Witnesses started expanding outside of the U.S., and they continued to expand until now they're in well over 200 countries around the world. In 1969, Watchtower purchased Squibb Pharmaceutical buildings at 2530 Columbia Heights, and they turned them into the famous Watchtower headquarters complex. There was such an iconic image of the Watchtower overlooking the East River and the Brooklyn Bridge. They were so proud of the fact that they were in the middle of the most important city in America.
My husband and I were invited to be part of the headquarters staff of the Watchtower. The Jehovah's Witnesses were going through a growth period. There were 4,000 people in the complex at the foot of the Brooklyn Bridge. And I was transferred into the writing department. The writing department generates all the articles that appear in all of the organization's literature. The October 8th, 1991 Awake magazine had an article about how to deal with victims of child abuse. So there's 8 million people all reading this, and the article really opened a Pandora's box for the Watchtower organization. It received more response than almost any other article in the history of the Watchtower. There was a windstorm of remarks and statements and letters. Around the world, Jehovah's Witnesses thought that this article about child abuse was a time to talk about their child abuse, that this Jehovah's Witness molested me when I was a child. I wanted to help to make this issue known because the lives of children were at stake. The Awake editor and I decided to put a package together of material to show the governing body, who were presiding elders, the immense problem, and to prove to them that something had to be done.
The governing body are 8 men. They've come up through the ranks of Jehovah's Witnesses. They claim to be anointed by God.
They're celebrities, I think, to a degree.
And they are the only individuals on the face of the earth who are spokespeople for God.
It took great faith to break free from the darkness brought on by centuries of false religious practices.
You represent the Most High God, Jehovah. And you also have to have conduct that supports the fact that you do worship this true God.
There'll be many others who will come back, who will have to abandon their former way of life. I was thinking, as an example, a homosexual.
They're the conduit for the Almighty God that you believe in and worship. And so if you don't believe these people who are the spokespeople for God, then you're disobeying God. And that's actually what the witnesses teach.
I just wanted to do my part to clean out known molesters, because that's what the Bible says to do, to put out the wicked man. They couldn't agree on what to do about it, and some said it was a fad. If you were a woman and a mother, and you learned what I did, you wouldn't do the same thing. You wouldn't rest at night. But people don't say anything. This is an organization that you don't march with signs and say, remove them, remove them. The dirty little secrets are well kept.
The first time we got a call was in 2010, and he was a victim of a serial perpetrator here in San Diego. We started to learn a little bit about Jehovah's Witnesses. That's how it all got started.
This organization has allowed the sexual abuse of children to fester within its ranks for decades.
I was very, very involved with the Catholic priest abuse scandal that swept the nation since the Boston Globe story broke in 2002. We did battle with the Catholic Church, but at the end of the day, they fessed up to the fact that they had a problem. Not so with Jehovah's Witnesses.
The Jehovah's Witnesses continue to insist they don't have a problem. They would much rather prove the accuser wrong and cover up what happened, because then you don't have the problem of the organization looking bad.
They care about their reputation. They don't want their names dragged through the mud.
Their way of dealing with it is to try to keep the lid on as much as possible. We were the first ones really to get to them with litigation. We learned early in our litigation against them that there was a call put out to all of the elders of all of the congregations in the United States in March of 1997.
Back when I was dealing with this is 1997, an article came out in the Awake magazine, Abhor What is Wicked. And in this article, the statement was made that this organization would not appoint a known molester to a position of authority. That was great. That was my moment of saying, 5 years, I worked on this, and they're doing something about it. But what they didn't say in the article is that they had been doing it for probably 4 or 5 decades. I wrote to the editor, and he wrote me back a letter. So I'm reading what he said there, and I'm astounded. And he said, thanks to our legal department, we no longer will have more megabuck lawsuits. Well, that was a shocker to me. I didn't know they had megabuck lawsuits. If I had to pay out megabuck money in a lawsuit, I would certainly do something that wouldn't happen again. After all, this organization is supported by donations. So donations were paying for the megabuck lawsuit settlements.
At this point, Watchtower was becoming to understand that they had a problem internally with child sexual abuse. So in 1997, Watchtower sent a letter to all 10,000 of its U.S. congregations with a questionnaire. It said, if you suspect that you have a child predator in your congregation, please take this questionnaire, fill out these questions, put it in this special blue envelope, and mail it back to Watchtower headquarters, and keep a copy of it in your file in your Kingdom Hall.
When this letter to all elders throughout the world came out, it said that we would like to know the names of known molesters. So that made up a file.
That is how Watchtower inadvertently wound up creating this massive database of child molesters.
That is the file that the Watchtower has never made public. And that is the file that the lawyers want.
We knew what the database contained because of the March 1997 letter. They emphasized the legal risk that they were facing of having potentially known molesters within the congregation. So they were worried about their legal exposure.
I remember where I was standing at that moment when I read that letter. I said, enough, enough. It was at that moment I left the religion.
For us to get to a tipping point in the litigation against the Jehovah's Witnesses, we need to get, first and foremost, these documents. Once we started asking for these files, they started coming up with all kinds of lies about, well, we don't have them, we'd have to go searching for them, it would take 20 years of man hours to find these files, and all this nonsense. Court ordered them to produce it. They said, no, we're not doing it.
Not only did Jehovah's Witnesses refuse to turn over the documents, but they elected to pay a $4,000 per day fine rather than to turn over those documents.
Ultimately, that $4,000 had accrued to about $2 million. They didn't produce the documents. And what happened was they ended up settling that case.
I first found out about the Jehovah's Witnesses as a potential reporting topic in January 2018. I was contacted by a guy I know on Twitter who was an ex-Jehovah's Witness, and he had suggested there were some deep-rooted problems in the religion. I would find if I talked to one abuse survivor, they would put me in touch with another one and another one, and within the space of a few weeks, I had, more than a dozen ex-witnesses who were willing to tell me their experience. This is really a worldwide problem. Mark O'Donnell is one of the ex-Jehovah's Witnesses that I came in contact with, I think, pretty early on for the first story that we published.
What interested me about Mark was that he was the first person apparently to really get his hands on aspects of the database, which nobody had ever managed to do before, and that he was behind leaking some of these documents. Mark is a very mild-mannered, soft-spoken, intelligent, unassuming, unemotional guy. Mark is the last guy on earth that you would think would be an activist. And when you speak to Mark, it takes a little while to understand what's going on behind those glasses and what's turning in that head.
As a child, I didn't feel that I needed to question my faith because I believed what I was being taught. My awakening came around the age of 46 when I began to peer into the outside world and become a little bit more aware of what was going on around me. I just wanted to know truth. I wanted to know what was real and what was not real. And I began to realize that everything I had been taught was false. It was shocking to me that growing up as one of Jehovah's Witnesses, we believed in truth and honesty and transparency, and yet Jehovah's Witnesses have done everything possible to conceal these documents that would have helped the victims, that would have exposed the problem. Why? Why would they do this? What was it that they were hiding? What was it that they didn't want the court to know? What was it that they didn't want the attorneys to know? I believe that now we're uncovering this because it had been concealed for so many years that, like other movements, when one person comes forward, then another person feels the strength to come forward. To realize that there are individuals who are inside the organization who are waking up, who have questions. They might be elders, they might be circuit overseers, they might be people who are just leaving the organization. They are going to reveal a lot more about what's really going on behind the scenes in the Jehovah's Witness organization. Finding out what was in the secret database of pedophiles became the search for the Holy Grail.
I was born into this. I feel as though I was brainwashed being raised as a Jehovah's Witness. I'm a PIMO, physically and mentally out. And basically what that means is I'm stuck in the organization, but I made the conscious decision of saying, okay, I don't believe this anymore. Basically.
Now, don't you think this is very sad that people have to go incognito, be on the DL, the down low, change their voice, have on hoodies, just because they no longer believe in this organization's teachings, and so that they won't lose their family? So if anyone ever tells me again, no, Jehovah's Witnesses do not destroy families, I'm going to look them in the face and tell them how sadly mistaken they are. And I will definitely point them to the internet and tell them to just go to YouTube, type in how Jehovah's Witnesses destroy families. This is ridiculous.
I have days where I feel very anxious because if I do get outed as somebody who doesn't believe, then I may lose my family and everybody I love forever, because you can't say that you don't believe and still have your family.
When I decided to uncover the truth about the organization that I had spent my entire life as a part of, I went online and I created the account John Redwood on Facebook. The reason for using an alias is because Jehovah's Witnesses cannot simply leave the organization and speak out or say anything critical of the organization without fear of being disfellowshipped.
It's either you're in and you're with us, or you're not with us and you don't have your family. That's how controlling this organization is.
It's an incredibly powerful behavior control tactic to say, if you ever question the group or break one of our rules, you risk being expelled or excommunicated or disfellowshipped, is the Watchtower term. And then no one will be able to have a relationship with you or even acknowledge you and talk with you.
When you're a part of a community as tight-knit as the Jehovah's Witnesses, where all of your friends, most of their family is witnesses, disfellowshipping is very severe. It can be like a death sentence. I mean, people have killed themselves due to being shunned in this way.
If you speak out against them, if you point out the discrepancies in the religion, then you're disfellowshipped. And that's one of their tactics of control.
They do not tolerate dissent.
The 11th commandment of Jehovah's Witnesses is thou shalt not go public, and I did.
Good evening. At some point, it may stop being news each time another person comes forward to say they were sexually abused as a child by a trusted religious figure.
This woman, Barbara Anderson, worked for a decade inside Jehovah's Witness headquarters. What she found, she says, sickened her.
The Watchtower Society didn't want to acknowledge that these girls were telling the truth because they were accusing elders of molesting them.
This is the story of Candace Conti, a young woman stepping out of the shadows to take on the all-male leadership of a wealthy, secretive religion who she says failed to protect her from a predatory pedophile.
Candace Conti was a young girl that was abused. They didn't believe her. They did not believe her. There had been lots of lawsuits previous to Candace Conti, but they were all settled and quiet. She was the first one to take Watchtower to court.
They made the mistake in the Candace Conti case of going to trial and getting hammered by a jury once how they handled these cases got exposed.
All right, sir, if you'll please raise your right hand.
When Candace and her attorney began conducting depositions with local church leaders, known as elders, they learned something astonishing.
Do you recall becoming aware at any time of sexual abuse of a child by Jonathan Kendrick?
Yes.
In the case of Conti, crimes that were committed were known to not only one elder, not two elders, but entire bodies of elders in multiple congregations, and they had been advised not to call the authorities, which further endangered other victims.
I was disfellowshipped a week before they...
Whoop, hold on. Sorry about that. I had to put it on Do Not Disturb.
And discussed my appearance on Dateline. He was told that because your mother went forward, thousands of people have left the organization. And so she's responsible for their deaths at Armageddon. If I'm supposed to be responsible for thousands of people who left because I spoke the truth to the public, then they're responsible for their policies of what has happened to literally tens of thousands and thousands of children. They said that I was disfellowshipped because I was a gross sinner. That was a threat to the organization. And so what do you do?
You see how they just make up their own rules as they go along? I know so many people who said in the ExJW community who said they would disfellowship because they wouldn't shun their children or they wouldn't shun their parents. You know, they make up their own rules as they go along. They are ready to destroy your family because you no longer want to follow what the governing body teaches and you have chosen to be a follower of Jesus Christ. And the Bible already told you how Jesus said he's going to cause a division in many families, mothers against daughters, fathers against sons, mother-in-laws against son-in-laws. The Bible said, because you chose to follow me, you're going to have many family members who are not going to be pleased with that.
We have no family any longer. We lost our son to the fact that he shuns us. I know many people wonder, how in the world can you shun someone that you love? How in the world would you shun your mother? It is because you're told it's an act of love. We found out that we have a granddaughter. We don't know her name. The shunning policy is torture. Because you don't choose to be part of a religion, you have to be punished like that?
One of the features of destructive cults is information control. Destructive cults leave out information, they distort information, and they outright lie.
They find all of these ways to keep people in the dark.
The spread of rumors is like wildfire that is hard to control.
We were told, don't go on the internet, don't read worldly magazines or newspapers, you can't trust the news, you can't trust the media, don't speak to apostates.
I was very surprised to find that my pseudonym, John Redwood, began to have more of a following than I ever expected. I began to investigate and to write, and I realized that many people were relying on the information that I was sharing with the public.
Jehovah's Witnesses define apostate as someone who leaves Jehovah and then becomes an enemy of Jehovah by speaking out against the organization. An apostate is the worst thing you can be as a Jehovah's Witness. And that's because an apostate is a threat.
Whoever, therefore, wants to be a friend of the world is making himself an enemy of God. They will vanish like smoke. Here's what Jehovah's promising. Hey.
In 2016 was when I actually gave myself the okay to look at other material besides material that was published by the Jehovah's Witnesses. And that's when I broke down.
It would have been expected of me to run and tattle on my husband. After Mark stopped going to meetings, they would come to me and say, Mark's hiding a secret. Mark must be cheating on you. Mark must be doing drugs. They encouraged me all the time to leave him. I would walk into Mark's office and he would turn his monitor off. He would flip his Kindle over. He would go in the backyard to be on his phone or his laptop. So then for a very short period of time, I started to question, are they right? Is he hiding something from me? Mark was hiding something. I didn't really know Mark, and that made a small crack for me.
Every witness is taught that Armageddon can come at any day, and if you are not fully in, you're going to die with everyone else on the planet. Even as a kid, that fear was put in me. Doesn't matter how young you are, if you don't follow Jehovah's ways based on what the Jehovah's Witnesses say, you are going to die when Armageddon comes.
There will be a complete genocide. 7 billion, 8 billion, how many ever people there are on the earth, they're dying at Armageddon. And only Jehovah's Witnesses will be saved.
They have Armageddon hanging over the heads of all its members. If you are not with Jehovah, you are with the world. And the world was going to end, and it's going to end soon. They teach fear. They want you to be afraid.
Growing up, I was primed for fear. If I heard like a thunderstorm, my mind instantly would go to thinking it was Armageddon. Like, oh shit, they were right.
It's terrifying, especially for a little child. It's fire coming out of the sky, people just dying left and right. It's just intense.
The end game in terms of the doctrine and what they promise people for all of these years of kind of compliance and being a Jehovah's Witness is living forever in a paradise on earth. And it's called the New System.
I never questioned my faith because I honestly wanted the new system to come. I just needed to know that there was something better out there. That was my drive. If I can make it to the new system, I can finally be happy.
Some of the most powerful images from my childhood, aside from the very negative pictures of Armageddon, would be the positive pictures, the contrast. Things that we wouldn't see now, we would see in the new system of things. And many people really bought into that, and they believed that this was the correct Bible teaching, that Jehovah wanted people to be happy and to live in paradise earth.
When you're a witness, you believe that this life you're living now is just a life in waiting. It's not the real life. Everything is put off to future paradise. You don't live in the present. This isn't the real world. So when that's the basis for your outlook on life, it affects every decision you make.
Mark and I did not have children. My main reason for not having children was because I could have kids in the new system, so what's the rush? The life I was living now was really a kind of a temporary life. I just have to get through, and then I could have the real life. And they call it the real life. At least I got my cats.
Oh, he's beautiful.
In November of 2013, Mark and I were on our way to some friend's house for the weekend, and he sat down and said, I can't do this anymore. And he, at that point, proceeded to let me know that he just wasn't going to be a witness anymore. And of course, that was devastating to me. Mark and I had been married 15 years, and we never had a real honest conversation with each other in 15 years, as I couldn't really tell him what I thought.
Mark Jeffrey O'Donnell, in the presence.
I'm sorry, Toby. Something happened with the film. Anyway, here we go. I had to start it from here.
Down for an organization that wouldn't protect me.
Being a witness is an everyday commitment.
It's not enough to just believe and then have a normal life outside of your belief system. You are to spend hours in the ministry going out knocking on doors because that's how you demonstrate your faith to God.
You can't celebrate Christmas, you can't go to a birthday party. It's a really busy life. You're spending the vast majority of your time doing things that have to do with being a witness. And that was the price that you willingly paid for the truth.
They degrade colleges and universities. They degrade professors. You'll see that smattered all over Jehovah's Witness literature, their talks, their videos, the dangers of higher education.
Higher education often instills a sense of superiority and self-reliance that is in direct opposition to the Christian personality. We will not need doctors or lawyers after Armageddon, but we will need carpenters and plumbers and similar construction trades. It requires faith to decline higher education and have the confidence that our material needs will be cared for by training in other fields.
Now tell me, how stupid is that? Okay, my tubies, that's the end of part 1. I already have part 2 already up. I just had to make a remake of this part 1. But, I mean, do you see how disgusting and how dangerous this organization is? They don't want you to become doctors or lawyers, but yet let them get sick. And the first thing they will scream out for is, where's the doctor? Let them get into any type of jam and need legal representation. I mean, how are you supposed to have all of these things? If imagine if everyone was to turn and become like Jehovah's Witnesses, we wouldn't have doctors, we wouldn't have lawyers, we wouldn't have psychologists, we wouldn't have anything that requires higher education. Anyway, part 2 is already up. I'll talk to you later. I love you. That's why I do what I do.